Good morning and welcome to the 247th meeting of the Program Management Committee. Can I get a roll call?
Yes, the record will reflect that we have trustees Wilson and Evans in the room and trustees Fair, Nikazison, and Wabi online.
Thank you. Approval of committee minutes for the September 5th, 2023 meeting.
Move approval.
Second.
There are no comments by the chair. Moving on to our engineering department agenda items. Rich?
Good morning, trustees. Fairly strong agenda here this morning, so if you have questions, particularly online, make sure you let me know, and that way I can stop and answer for you. First one is the CSO volume reduction green infrastructure grant for Triumph Academy. The ordinance authorizes the district to enter agreement with Fresh Coast Capital LLC, doing business as Green Print Partners, to provide financial assistance through the Green Infrastructure Grant Program. The purpose of the project is to reduce combined sewer overflows to the Mississippi River per the long-term control plan. This project will reduce runoff with the installation of 2 bioretention basins and 2 rain barrels. The total cost of the project is estimated at $707,956, and Fresh Coast Capital LLC is requesting approximately $707,956 for the total cost of the green infrastructure. In your packet, there's a document showing the project location. It's a magnet school. It's in North St. Louis City in the O'Fallon Park neighborhood. A large bioretention basin into the northeast corner and one in the southeast corner as well, and then the 2 rain barrels. Are there any questions? All right, our next 5 items are design contracts, looking for authorization for the design contracts and appropriation of dollars. These are for fiscal year 24 design projects, where future years will have the construction for these projects. The first one is the Bonfils Pump Station rehabilitation. Ordinance authorized the district to enter a contract with Stantec Consulting Services for the design of the Bonfil Pump Station rehabilitation. It is a lump sum cost for the design and preparation of construction documents to construct significant upgrades to the piping, electrical, mechanical, and structural systems to avoid failure due to the pump station being approaching 35 years of age. The purpose of the project is to replace pumps and transfer switches, VFDs, and control panels. Additionally, there's site improvements to minimize the access road and structure flooding and address structural deficiencies through the concrete and lining repairs. The total cost estimate of the construction is anticipated to be approximately $6.3 million. There were 4 other proposals considered on the job. The appropriation of $770,000 for design services is $75,000 above the proposed budget funding. The additional cost is for completing some flood modeling to determine to check the discharge conditions of the force main during flood conditions. So that was something we added to have the consultant do. MWBE. I want to point out that both the design and construction projects that we have today are under the new MWBE requirements that Shauna Paredes has been discussing. So the new goals for design projects, for projects over $500,000, the goals are MBE participation minority 18%, and women WBE participation is now 13%. Stantec has met that with 20% for MBE and 14% for WBE anticipated on the project. Are there any questions? Next item is the Deer Creek OMCI Stormwater Design Contract A. It appropriates funds and authorizes staff to enter a design contract. The ordinance authorizes the district to enter a contract with HR Green, provide design services for projects in the Deer Creek OMCI. The project consists of the design and preparation of construction documents for several stormwater infrastructure projects in the Deer Creek watershed. The design contracts there's 3 projects: the North Harrison Avenue Storm Project, the Old Bonham Storm Sewers Project, and the Warson Road Stream Bank Stabilization Project. There were 2 other proposals considered on this project. The total appropriation from design services is $170,000 below the total proposed budget funding in the CIRP. The design MBE participation on this project is anticipated to be 18.24% for minorities and 14.17% women participation by subcontractors or subconsultants, which meets the 18 and the 13% goal. All right, the next item is the General Services Agreement, Water Quality Support Services. This action appropriates funds and authorizes staff to enter a contract. To authorize the district to enter a contract 1 year with 2 option years with HDR Engineering. The purpose of this project is to provide $150,000 annually of water quality and environmental regulatory support to ensure district compliance with environmental laws and regulations. This contract will utilize HDR, provide MSD with regulatory support for a wide variety of environmental issues. HDR will assist district staff with environmental permitting and developing compliance strategies. The scope of the work will be developed for each regulatory issue on an as-needed basis, and the consultant must submit a list of tasks to be performed and an estimated cost, which will be approved by district staff before proceeding. There was 1 other proposal considered for the project. The appropriation for the design services is equal to that what's shown in the budget. On this particular project, because these services are generally self-performed by HDR with very limited possibility for WBE participation, we received a waiver from the diversity staff for this particular project. There's no goal. Occasionally, we will get some sub-consultant participation. That will be documented, but there was no goal on this project. Next item is the Missouri River Engine Generator Replacement and Digester System Improvements. This action appropriates funds and authorizes staff to enter into a design contract with CDM Smith for the design of this project. The Missouri River project is a lump sum cost for the design and preparation of construction documents to construct significant upgrades to the cogeneration process and optimize the plant's overall energy efficiency and to extend their useful life. The purpose of the project is to replace the existing engine generators, complete upgrades to electrical components to optimize the power distribution across the entire facility, replace the covers and associated piping and construction enclosure for the gas flare system. The total construction estimate for this project is $6,571,000. The district received 2 other proposals for this project. Our appropriation of $1,014,000 is $244,000 above what was in the budget. The proposed funding exceeded the budget due to additional design services to install an online biogas quality instrumentation meters and address upgrades to the existing biogas system, heat exchanger, and cool air chiller that wasn't identified in the original budget. The MWB participation on this project, CDM Smith's anticipating just under 20% minority participation and 13% women consultant participation, which meets the 18 and 13% goal. Next item is the South County Relief Pump Station improvements. Appropriates funds and authorize staff to enter into design contract with Tubino Wade and Merchant for the design of the South County Relief Pump Station improvements. This is a lump sum cost for design and preparation of construction documents to construct significant upgrades to the piping, electrical, mechanical, and complete structural improvements to this pump station, which is over 40 years old. The purpose of the project is to replace the equipment within the station, improve the station capacity with the installation of wet weather storage pipes, and address structural deficiencies with the repairs of the concrete and the overhead crane system. The construction cost estimate for this project is $3,592,000. There were 4 other proposals considered for this project. The appropriation of $494,000 for design services, $76,000 above the proposed funding presented in the CIRP, exceeded the budget due to some additional HVAC and odor control construction improvements that are necessary for the safety of district staff. This project, with the design appropriation less than $500,000, had a single goal of combined minority and women participation of 31%. Tubino, Wade, and Merchant exceeded that with 31.29%. All right. The next 2 appropriations are designed supplemental appropriations for ongoing design projects. The first one is the General Service Agreement Facility and Sewer Design Contract A. This action appropriates additional funds and authorizes to amend a design contract. This is an unplanned appropriation, so it's not in the budget. It's some services that we're requiring of this consultant that we didn't plan for. It authorizes into amendment number 4 with Donahue and Associates. The project consists of the design of small sanitary storm and treatment plant projects throughout the district. The purpose of this additional funding is to complete an independent review of original design plans, specifications, structural calculations, and corrective actions for existing project at the Lower Merrimack expansion. This contract amendment is for a total of $200,000. After this amendment, the total appropriation will be $1,150,000. Currently, originally, Donahue had anticipated 25% MBE participation. There was no goal at that time, and currently they are running at 17.34% participation. Next item is the Lower Merrimack Wastewater Treatment Plant Expansion Phase 2. This additional appropriation is planned for fiscal year 24 and authorizes staff to amend a design contract with HDR Incorporated for the construction phase services of the Lower Merrimack Expansion Phase 2. Again, it's a lump sum design for the project, which is the construction documents, construction and expansion, and currently is under construction. The purpose of this project is to increase the overall plant capacity to treat future additional flows when the Fenton wastewater treatment plant is removed from service. The total construction cost for the Lower Merrimack wastewater treatment plant is approximately $115 million. On this particular project, the original anticipated MWB participation was approximately 7.1%. With this amendment, the work being done with this dollars being appropriated is 17.5% participation, which right now the overall percentage of participation is 19.6%, which has exceeded their original commitment on the project. Next item is Greenbrier Pump Station eliminate.
Hold on.
Is there a question?
Yeah, Rich, could you go back to that pump station, the Lower Merrimack the expansion?
Yes.
So you said the total cost of the project is expected to be 1.1, I'm sorry.
115.
Is 115 million? Is that what you said?
Yes.
And this is a million.
This is a supplemental. Yeah, this is for the consultant that designed it during the construction. We refer to it as construction phase services. They review shop drawings, submittals, and whatnot that come through our construction manager. So that's for these services. It was originally budgeted for fiscal year 24.
Got it. And so we're gonna expect to see, or have we already seen a number of expenditures on this project?
Hold on here. Let me look here. I do not have the appropriations listed for the actual construction, so I don't know off the top of my head. That project, I know we probably funded over multiple years, so I don't know what our total appropriation has been for the actual construction. But the total appropriation over multiple years will be 115 for the construction. 115 million, I'm sorry.
115 million, okay. And so we don't know really where we are in the process?
I don't know off the top of my head how much we appropriated initially. In other words, a project like that, we typically fund the construction over multiple years, but I can get that for you. I can tell you how much we appropriated when we started the project and then what the supplemental appropriations are for construction. I can also provide that for the design services as well.
Okay. And then obviously the biggest question, I guess, is when is it going to be done?
I think we've probably got at least another 2 years of construction out there.
Okay.
I can provide you a breakdown of both the construction and design appropriations for the project.
Yeah, that'd be good. Thank you.
Okay. Sorry, just off the top of my head, I know the design appropriations, but not the construction. All right, thank you. Greenbrier Pump Station elimination. This appropriates additional funds for an ongoing construction project being constructed by Gershenson. This is an unplanned appropriation. The work to be done consists of construction of approximately 928 feet of 8-inch sanitary sewers and the abandonment and filling of a detention basin, detention pipe and a pump station, and the elimination of the pump station. This is a supplemental appropriation of $200,000, and it's necessary due to costs associated with encountering Class A excavation during the construction of the 8-inch sanitary sewer line eliminating. There was an area that we ran into additional Class A rock. It was kind of a bluff where we were digging the new sewer. So it's going to exceed our original appropriation on the project. Our original appropriation was $390,000. With this $200,000 appropriation, our total appropriation for the project will expect it to be $590,000. Any questions on that one? All right. Next item is the CSO Brentwood and Redbud Interceptor outfall elimination and sewer separation. This action appropriates funds and authorizes staff to enter into agreements with Ameren, Missouri, Spire, Missouri, Missouri American Water, AT&T, MCI, and Charter. This ordinance authorized to complete the work, which consists of the relocation of utility poles, gas lines, water lines, and overhead utilities that are in direct conflict with the proposed project. This work will be completed under individual agreements with those utilities. The CSO Brentwood project construction actually consists of 14,700 lineal feet, almost 3 miles, of 8-inch to 30-inch storm and sanitary combined and appurtenances, and also includes public and private I&I removal within the area. The purpose of this project is to remove excessive inflow from the combined sewer and will also allow for the elimination of a combined sewer overflow. This is the first phase of utility relocation. These utilities are required to be removed before we can even get started. We don't want to bid the job, then have to have the utilities relocated, have our contractor waiting. So we're relocating these facilities that we know have to be relocated at this time. There is a potential for more utility relocation during the actual construction of the project. Our appropriation of $1,100,000 is lower than the $3 million we provided in the budget. Again, we do anticipate potentially more relocation at a later time. All right. Next item is the infrastructure repair contract A. This action appropriates funds and authorizes staff to enter into a construction contract. The work consists of rehabilitation of approximately 108,599 linear feet of sewers from 6 to 30-inch in diameter using the cured-in-place pipe method. The purpose of the project is to reduce inflow and infiltration, rehabilitate older, damaged, and deteriorated sanitary sewers throughout the district boundaries. Sewers are identified for rehabilitation through our annual CMOM inspection program required by the consent decree. The district, we received 2 bids on this job. The low bid was from SAK Construction. The bid was above our design estimate, and our appropriation of $5.2 million is above the planned budget for the project. This project here, again, is one of our projects that has the new minority and women participation goals. The goals for construction jobs that were bid, that are being bid at this time, have a 10% minority subcontractor participation requirement and a 10% women subcontractor requirement. SAK is committed to 22.17% overall in meeting the 10% women and 10% minority goal for the project. Are there any questions? All right, the next item is the Sherwood Drive Storm Sewer Project. This action appropriates funds and authorizes staff to enter a construction contract. The work to be done consists of construction of approximately 508 linear feet of storm sewer, varying in size from 12 to 18-inch in diameter. The purpose of the project is to alleviate yard flooding in the 27 and 2800 blocks of Sherwood Drive in the unincorporated North St. Louis County. The district received 4 bids on this project. The low bid was from J.H. Barra and Company, J.H. Barra Construction, I'm sorry. And the bid was above our designer's estimate. Our appropriation of $235,000 is just below the budget assigned to the project fiscal year 24. The MWB participation is 20.47%, which meets the 10% minority and 10% women goal for the project. Next item is the stormwater infrastructure repairs. This is our annual appropriation for infrastructure repair work on the stormwater system. This action appropriates funds for stormwater infrastructure repair, replacement, and or construction projects that are bid through the purchasing department. This appropriation of $5 million will address stormwater projects consisting of the repair or replacement of storm inlets, manholes, sewers, and other infrastructure. They are identified by operations and engineering departments throughout the district. They are also part of our CMOM program for the storm sewer system. The Stormwater Infrastructure Program spends a portion of the funding through the small contractor program. And just an update on the current fiscal dollars for fiscal year 23, there's been expenditures approximately $1.8 million of expenditures in the current appropriation, and 34% of those are going to minority and women contractors of those dollars. Of the total jobs, which are there are 173 of the small sewer, 32% of the overall jobs are going to minority and women jobs. So that's maintained pretty steady for the entire infrastructure, both on the wastewater and the stormwater side. So those are good numbers. We get a lot of these contractors will eventually work their way into bidding larger jobs. Are there any questions? All right, the next 3 items are our municipal grants being awarded through the OMCI reimbursements program. The first one is the Coldwater Creek OMCI reimbursement to St. Anne. This ordinance authorizes the district to enter into intergovernmental agreement with the city of St. Anne for eligible stormwater expenditures where revenue is collected in the Coldwater Creek OMCI subdistrict. Eligible stormwater expenditures include storm sewer and inlet construction, drainage improvements, stream bank stabilization, and erosion control projects, clearing under bridges, cleaning detention basins, stormwater planning or engineering costs, and other stormwater-related expenses determined to be appropriate by the district. The project at St. Anne is requesting dollars are the St. Anne Golf Course storm sewer. The district's completed design services for a 1,900 linear foot storm sewer to address issues with undersized and failing infrastructure. The district will follow with the contract for construction. This agreement follows an earlier agreement with MSD study services reimbursement. The estimated total cost of the construction is $519,698. This will provide for reimbursement of up to $207,883. All right, the next reimbursement is in the Deer Creek OMCI. It's with the city of Des Peres and authorizes the district to enter into an intergovernmental agreement with the city of Des Peres for eligible stormwater expenses from Deer Creek OMCI. The project being constructed by the city of Des Peres is the Brook Bend Drive drainage improvements. The city will contract for design services for a new curb inlet and piping, which will tie into the existing storm system. The estimated cost for the design of this project is $29,863, and this agreement provides for the full reimbursement of that $29,863. And all these, the appropriations were actually made earlier in the fiscal year, from fiscal year 23 dollars. There'll be additional dollars appropriated for the reimbursement program later for fiscal year 24. Apologize, I meant to mention that. The following is also a Deer Creek OMCI reimbursement for the city of Town and Country. This ordinance authorized the district to enter into an intergovernmental agreement with the city of Town and Country from the Deer Creek OMCI. The Town and Country is constructing a project 2717 North Ballast drainage improvements. The city will contract for engineering services to design curb inlets and area inlets in the vicinity of the 27 and 2600 block of North Ballast Road. The estimated cost of the design is $32,491, and this provides for the reimbursement of that $32,491. Any questions? All right, the next two items are requests for staff to move forward with easement condemnation. The first one is the McCutcheon Road and Thorndale Sanitary Relief Project. This ordinance authorized staff to proceed with further condemnation efforts, including the filing of all necessary court pleadings and documents leading to the acquisition of permanent and or construction easements on 4 parcels of ground for a project in the city of Richmond Heights. The easements and temporary licenses are needed to construct a project. This project, which consists of approximately 1,700 linear feet of 12 to 15-inch sanitary sewers. And the purpose of the project is alleviate building backups and overcharged sanitary sewers. At this time, the district's been currently unable to negotiate all the easements with the property owners. Overall, the project required 7 easements to be acquired, leaving 4 for this condemnation request. In your packet, there's documents showing the location, and I'll cover these. If you want to follow along with that, I'll read the parcel number and then explain the status of the easement. Parcel 1 is, we are making contact with the property owners. We've been trading restoration requirements for an existing sports pad located to the back of the property. And there's also a retaining wall. Working out those agreements, we do not anticipate going to condemnation, but we'd like to keep the process moving forward, thus looking for this approval. Parcel 2 Sorry, I'm getting my papers together here. Again, is adjacent to parcel 1. As you can see, we're going through a large portion of these folks' driveway with the new sewer, so we're working with them. There's some special requirements that we're working with the property owner. There is a disabled person located at this location. We're trying to work out those details so our contractor doesn't cause any issues with their access to the property. We do anticipate getting this easement. We've just been unable to finish the acquisition at this time. Parcel 5. This is, we've been working with this property. As you can see, we're taking up pretty much of this person's backyard. We've moved the sewer into an area that has less trees to try to avoid some of the tree removal to the back. There's a large tree that the homeowners have concern about, so we're still working with them. We feel like we should be able to work out the agreement with them, but just requesting to move forward with condemnation, or at least notifying them of condemnation to keep the project moving. And then finally, parcel 12. Again, across the corner of this person's property, this is one where we're just having difficulty not getting any response. I've been out there several times, left door hangers, not getting any response from the property, even going by on easements. So without any further interaction with them, we would probably anticipate we would go to condemnation on this particular property. Any questions on the McCutcheon Road project? All right, the next item is the Normandy Sanitary Relief Project. This ordinance authorized staff to proceed with further condemnation efforts and the filing of all necessary court pleadings for the acquisition of permanent temporary construction easements. The write-up says 4. We've actually since acquired one of the parcels, so that there are currently 3 parcels on this project that we're seeking condemnation or approval to go to condemnation on. There were a total of 17 on the project, so we've acquired 14, so we're moving along down to the last 3. And where we're at with all 3 of these, without going individually to look at them, all 3 are very similar to the last one we had, just not getting responses from the property owners, trying to make contact through several means and not getting any response. Hopefully we'll get some response from them. One of the easements is actually on a cemetery, so and it's a very small easement, so a lot of times you just, with management companies for cemeteries, things like that, it's just hard getting a hold of who's responsible for providing the easements. And then the other 2 parcels both are commercial properties. One's a very small easement on the corner of the property, but we do need the easement. And then the other one is a facility that doesn't appear to be manned. It's a storage facility where there's tractor trailers are stored there. So it'd be probably they're just not responding. Again, it could be due to a management company, but just having trouble getting contact with any of these property owners. All right. Then the last item is the power system study. This authorized staff to exercise option year 3 of a professional service agreements with power system studies and arc flash assessments. This authorized the district to enter into option year 3 with Ross and Berrezzini for these services. The purpose of this contract, again, is to provide the ability to assess existing electrical power lineups at the district facilities, is safely in operating electrical lineups. These studies will assess the electrical hazards in the workplace and provide PPE equipment selection guidelines for district employees based on arc flash risk hazard. This is funded through the operation department operating budget for approximately $200,000 for this fiscal year. And this will be a resolution on next Thursday's agenda. If there are no further questions, that is all I have, Trustee Nicholson.
Well, thank you, Rich. There's no other business. Next tentative meeting date will be October 31st, 2023. Can I get a motion for adjournment?
Move. Second.
Everybody have a good day.
Thank you. We'll change documents and let everybody know when we're ready to go.
What's that? I've got my computer, thanks.
I think I'm good.
Thank you.
When you send some stuff to Wadden, I think he's curious how far along the construction is, not necessarily the appropriations, just,
Yeah, I'll get him timeline.
yeah.
It'll be longer than we thought.
Okay. Thank you.
Tim, you've got everything handed out here, right?
Yes.
Ready when they're ready? Okay, Trustee Evans, I think we're ready to go when you are.
Okay, we'll call to order the 295th meeting of the Finance Committee. Can I get a roll call, please?
Yes, well, the record will reflect that trustees Evans and Wilson are in the room, and trustees Fair, Nikozison, and Wabi are present online.
A motion to approve the minutes of the prior meeting?
So move.
Can someone second that, or are they muted?
Second.
Thank you. I have no comments. First item is the Rimini Street contract ordinance.
All right,
Good morning, trustees. Introducing the ordinance number 16246 for the Oracle EBS support services. This is a professional services project from the Information Technology Department. We are requesting this action to continue to provide technical and security support of our Oracle EBS system. This is necessary to enter into a one-year contract with a one-year option year with Rimini Street Incorporated. That company provides technical support services for our Oracle EBS system. This is required for the district to continue to produce payroll, administer employee benefits, and report and reference historical, financial, and human resource information. The appropriation amount is for $450,000. It impacts fiscal years 24 and 25. Technical and security support services are required through May of fiscal year 25. There are two projects that are pending that information technology is working to complete. The first is the payroll project. It's scheduled to complete in January of 2024. That will be the last time W-2s are produced from the EBS system. And thereafter, we will retire those the functionality for payroll in the EBS system. And then in fiscal year, by May of fiscal year 2025, we will be decommissioning the EBS system functions that provide for historical reporting. There were two previous board actions. One was a resolution to exercise a previous contract that expires on November 30 of this year, and the initial ordinance that allowed us to enter into a contract with Rimini Street for these EBS system support services. Any questions? Thank you, trustees.
All right, next item is Resolution 2474, and Mike Gidler from the Finance Department is here to explain that one.
Good morning, trustees. As Tim said, I'm Mike Gindler. I'm the Assistant Director of Finance. I'm here to talk about Resolution number 3863, which is a replacement of Resolution 2474. Resolution 2474 contains language that in the event a low bidder for a district construction project is rejected as non-responsive and all other bids do not conform to the guidelines in the resolution, the project will be rebid. It allows a contract to be awarded to the next lowest responsive bidder, provided their bid does not exceed the bid variance thresholds as identified in the chart at the bottom of your detail sheet. And what we've done is we've modified some of those variance thresholds to remove the dollars. The resolution, staff also wishes to revise the bid variance amounts. Oh, that's what I said. And it provides clarity regarding timing and explanations to be provided to the Board of Trustees when a recommendation to award a construction contract to the next lowest responsive bidder is made. Staff also wishes to replace the reference to disadvantaged business enterprise criteria with minority or women business enterprise, and to update the language referring to state revolving fund criteria to state and federal funding criteria. Are there any questions? Okay, thank you.
All right, then the last two items are mine. The first one is going to be an introduction and adoption of a proposed ordinance to amend a 2018 loan agreement with WIFIA. So earlier, or a couple of weeks ago, we entered into a new agreement with WIFIA for a new loan, and there's some differences between the two loans, and so we just want to align those really for some administrative benefit. So these are not material items, but they will, for example, the 2018 and the 2023 agreements both require us to submit an annual financial forecast to the EPA, to WIFIA, but the timelines are different. When those reports are due, so we want to get those, we do the same day, so we can just send one model at one time to satisfy both loan agreements. The 2018 agreement requires us to notify EPA by email when we enter into new debt agreements. The 2023 recognizes that we already, every time we enter a new loan agreement, report that through a reporting service called EMMA, and so the new agreement recognizes that we already use EMMA, and so this would align those so that we do not have to proactively send an email. The EPA will be notified through EMMA. And the 2018 agreement requires us to verify that we have a Dun & Bradstreet number, which we do have, but the new agreement drops that requirement. And so we'd like to just, again, align those loan agreements. So nothing material to the loan terms. This will just ease some administration of the loans. Any questions on that? All right, then the last item will be the monthly portfolio review. This is as of near the end of last week, so I'll start in the upper left. Total par amount was a little over $593 million. That is down $22 million from the previous month, so that's due to capital expenditures. The yield to maturity was down a little bit. That is because we did not have any previous low-cost investments drop off this month. And so the net reduction in portfolio actually dropped our return a little bit. So we're down to 2.5% yield to maturity on the portfolio from about 2.6. Although all of the new investments that we're making are at a higher rate. For example, just in the last week, or in the whole month, actually, our investments have ranged from 5.3 to 5.7%, the new investments. Treasury yields continue to go up. They're now at, I think, at least 16-year highs. So the yield to maturity on the portfolio, which turns over every month, the entire portfolio's at 5.16%. Not big differences in weighted average maturity between the portfolios. We stay shorter since we are funding capital projects and operations. Moving over to the upper right sector allocations, we're in compliance with the policy limits. We did see a little bit of an increase in U.S. Treasury bonds just because those rates are really good. A little bit of increase in Fed agency bond notes and a little drop in commercial paper, but everything is within the limits. And then no big changes to the fund summary other than you see the drop in par value that was really constrained to the MSD operations account. And then the maturity distribution comparison between our portfolio and the benchmark shows what it always does, that we have more money in the 0 to 1 year bucket while the portfolio is really concentrated in the 1 to 3 year maturity bucket. Any questions about the operating fund portfolio? All right, if not, Trustee Evans, that's all we have for the Finance Committee meeting.
All right, next tentative meeting date is October 31st. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All right, thank you.
Second.
We will change things around as quickly as we can to be ready to go.
Good morning. How are you?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Roll. Pass this back. No, I think we can start at 8:15. Oh, it does? That was supposed to be 8:15, I thought.
The final one was 8:15.
Say 8:30.
Yeah, I know, it got changed finally to 8. The last one went out as 8:15. We're good. Distributed, you guys are okay still? Trustee Wilson, we're ready to start when you are.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to the October Stakeholder Relations Committee meeting. Can I get a roll call?
Yes, the record will reflect that trustees Wilson and Evans are present in the room, and trustees Fair, Nikozissin, and Wabi are present online.
Thank you. I have no comments. We'll move on to approval of the committee meeting minutes from September the 5th. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. No objection. Those notes are approved. Next item is a discussion by Ms. Meyer regarding updating our conflict of interest policy.
Thank you, and good morning. Last month, you all readopted the conflict of interest policy per state law. We are required to do that every 2 years. We were in the midst of making an update to the ordinance that we didn't have, or to the conflict of interest policy that we didn't have ready last month. So this month, proposed ordinance 16247 will be on the agenda for introduction, and it is to update Attachment B of the Conflict of Interest Policy. Attachment B is the Vendor Contractor Consultant Conflict of Interest Questionnaire. What staff is recommending is to add a section to that questionnaire regarding restrictions that if a former MSD employee is a managing member or controls the operations and/or governance of an entity, then that entity will be disqualified from being awarded the particular MSD contract or project under solicitation, or will not be pre-qualified, as the case may be, for a period of 1 year after the employee leaves MSD. State law allows, this conflict of interest policy has always followed state law. There is a section of the state law that allows our policy to be stricter than the state law, and that's what this requirement would be. So in your packet is a copy of the conflict of interest policy, and attachment B is on page 12 and 13 of that policy, and it's item number 4 that we are adding, or recommending we add to the the attachment. Are there any questions?
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Okay, the next item, kind of extensive. Mr. Coleman, would you like to take us through?
Thank you, Trustee Wilson. Yes, trustees, I would like to present proposed ordinance 16249 for the group vision plan insurance. The district's implementing a new vision insurance plan, entering into a contract with National Vision Administrators. This contract, if approved, will begin January 1st, 2024, and your approval will authorize us to enter into a contract with NAV to provide vision insurance for the district's employees and family members. This will be a one-year contract with 3 option years. And trustees, the cost of this is different than what is listed. It would be $150,000 annually if approved. Are there questions about this particular ordinance? Okay, well, I'll move on. The next proposed ordinance is 16250. This is for the group medical plan benefits for the group medical and the stop loss coverage. The current plan year that we have with Cigna is due to expire December 31st of 2023. This particular ordinance, if approved, would become effective January 1st, 2024, and it would authorize us to enter into a contract with Cigna to provide medical and the stop loss insurance for our employees and their family members. We're looking at a one-year contract with 2 option years. The estimated cost is different than what is printed. Annual cost for that would be $275,000, not to exceed $500,000 for the administrative cost. Are there any questions about this particular ordinance? Okay. The next proposed ordinance is ordinance number 16251 for the group dental plan benefits. The current plan agreement that we have with Cigna is due to expire December 31st of 2023. If approved, trustees, this action will allow us to go into a new contract starting January 1st, 2024, with a one-year contract with 2 option years, and it will provide the dental coverage for our employees and their family members. The printed cost that you see here is also incorrect. The annual cost for this insurance is $177,000. Are there questions about the dental? Okay. Trustees, the next thing I want to bring your attention to is resolution number 3860 for the FMLA administration provider. The current plan that we have with the Standard, who is our provider, is due to expire December 31st of 2023. If you approve this resolution, this will allow us to go into our second option year with the Standard. And this group again provides the administrative FMLA service for the district's employees. The annual cost for this is $14,100. Questions about the FMLA resolution? Next resolution is 3861 for the group life insurance for accidental death and dismemberment. This particular current plan with the Standard expires December 31st, 2023. If you approve the resolution, it'll allow us to go into the second option year with the Standard to continue to provide accidental death and dismemberment coverage to our district employees. The annual cost for this insurance is $192,000. Are there questions about the resolution in the second option year? Okay. Next resolution is resolution 3862 for the group long-term disability coverage. The current plan agreement with the Standard is due to expire December 31st, 2023. If this resolution is approved, this will allow us, MSD, to enter into a second option year with the Standard to continue to provide the long-term disability insurance for our employees. The annual cost for this insurance is $170,000. Are there questions about this insurance resolution? Okay, well, trustees, that's all I have today. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, on to the Next item will be address the diversity, 2023 diversity annual report. Meredith?
Yes,
How are
we
you?
will. Good morning.
Good.
Good morning. I'll be presenting the results of our diversity programs for our fiscal year 2023 that ended June 30th of this year. The agenda for this report covers our capital improvement replacement programs for construction and design, small contractor infrastructure repairs program, and our community benefits agreement programs. In construction, there were 73 project awards worth $156.7 million. 66 projects were sewer construction projects. One was under 50,000 with no goals. We also had 7 state-funded projects. 28.5% of the total project awards, amounting to $44.6 million, went to minority and women-owned businesses based off of our total spend. And the actual dollars paid on active contracts this past year was $56 million, which was 44.72% of the total payments that were made out last year. Next slide. Next, I'll cover the construction workforce component. The current workforce goals for building and non-building apply to projects over $500,000 with goals of 30% minority, 7% women, 40% if apprentices are used. And for state-funded construction projects, we use the state goals of 14.7% minority and 6.9% women. We had 134 building and non-building active construction projects with nearly 400,000 boots on the ground hours worked, along with about 175,000 hours that were worked on 51 state-funded projects. And the next slide will show the percentage breakdowns for that workforce. The overall minorities represent about 28%, and women, it came in at 6.82%, with 46% of the total training being provided to minorities and women, which exceeded our 40% goal. As always, we measure all construction, including state-funded projects, against our overall program goals of 30% minority and 7% women. With these results, what these results demonstrate is that projects worked were more conservative and pretty consistent with meeting the goals assigned on each contract. Now, the next slide will give you a chart of the workforce participation over the past 3 years. And this chart demonstrates that over the past 3 years, workforce numbers have remained conservative, with minority participation at about 27% and women participation experiencing a slight drop in this past fiscal year, but overall, we have been meeting the 7% women goal over the past 3 years. Next slide. This next information covers our design, utilization, and workforce on our capital program. Design projects also continue to bring forth good MWBE participation despite not having goals. For the 12 projects last year worth $7.6 million, 46% was with MWBE firms. And $10 million of the total payments, or 63% of the funds paid out, went to diverse firms. We did, however, experience a decline for minorities within the local office workforce, but the women have continued to have a great presence with a little over 34% participation locally in the offices. Next slide. So overall, professional services over the past 3 years have remained strong, as you can see here, demonstrated by our participation of minority and women workforce. Next slide. Next is the small contractor program, which continues to be extremely beneficial for small businesses. Overall participation in terms of the spend on the program was 33.75%. Both sanitary and storm are consistent with bringing forth 33.15% for sanitary and 34.61% on the stormwater side. Over the past years, the program average is 34.32% participation overall, which is consistent with the participation across MSD's capital construction programs. This information involves our community benefits agreement. Through our involvement with our 11 signatories you see listed here, MSD continues to focus on addressing barriers affecting small business and economic growth within our communities. So with that in mind, the board will continue to see efforts focused on areas identified under our agreement and with the signatories you see listed here. Next, I'll cover the program information for our community benefits agreement. Workforce development is a component of the CBA. We've had great success in partnership with BUD for many years. They have continued to facilitate pathways for economically disadvantaged in partnership with the St. Louis Skilled Trades and various other organizations within the construction industry. In 23, MSD sponsored 34 participants that participated through the BUD program. And I'm happy to say that Monday, one of the BUD participants started work here at MSD. We've also developed strong programming in the areas of education and internships through SIUE and the SLIP programs, and providing employment gateways for youth and adults to have opportunities that open pathways to career opportunities. The plan with our CBA signatories is to continue expansion and outreach into our distressed areas within our communities. And finally, we successfully launched the disparity study results into our diversity programs beginning July 1st for the design side and August 1st for construction. As you saw, some of those projects have started to come forth for board approval. There are also plans underway to present information to the board in the next couple of months pertaining to our compliance software. And that concludes my report for our 2023 fiscal year. Are there any questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Trustee Wilson, if you'd like, I'll move forward now with the rate commission report. So for those online, there's one really important document, and that is the letter from the rate commission that they transmitted with the rate proposal. I'm going to use that as the agenda, and that's the way I'm going to address the topics and the way they're presented in that letter. There are other documents that I've sent with information. One was an email I sent on September 11th, and one was on September 15th. Those in attendance have hard copies here. It's not necessary that you have those available right now. I'm going to verbalize everything, what the process and procedure is, what staff's recommendations are in order to generate a conversation with the Board of Trustees. So there's three things I'm going to address. First is the process for the board's acceptance of the report from the rate commission. So I'm going to do that first. Second, I'm going to address the list of items that start at the bottom of page 1 and go through page 2 on the letter that came from the rate commission. They don't have to do with acceptance of their report, but there are recommendations and suggestions that traditionally MSD has taken a look at and responded back to the rate commission as to what our plans are with regard to those recommendations. Then the last thing, there were 2 items brought up at the board meeting last month that are reflective of some of the minority reports, but contrary to the findings of the rate commission. The board needs to discuss what, if anything, to do with that, and I'll let you know what that process and procedure is as we move forward. So first of all, with regard to acceptance of the rate proposal, there's 2 parts that are pertinent to the charter, from the charter. So the rate commission is tasked with reviewing rates and taxes that are being proposed, as well as the structure of those rates and taxes, and compare those to 5 factors that are listed in our rate proposal. And I've discussed, that are listed in our charter, and I've discussed what those are. We had a long discussion about them prior to the change in the charter, where we adjusted a few of those that the board has to review. The other pertinent part is the board is required within 100 days of receiving this report to either reject some parts of the recommendations from the rate commission, to accept the report from the rate commission, or if you do nothing for 100 days, the report is considered accepted. That 100-day happens to fall right on the December board meeting. So I think my point is we have some time with that. It requires you to pass a resolution. What came from the rate commission with regard to rates, taxes, and the changes in their structure, the rate commission found that MSD was in compliance, its proposal was in compliance with all 5 of those factors. They voted that we are in compliance. So unless the board has a disagreement with any of those findings from the rate commission, that would lead us to a resolution indicating that the Board of Trustees have accepted that report. I've sent you a draft copy of that on one of the emails. It basically indicates that we are accepting their report, and there's a standard language afterwards that addresses these other recommendations, just indicating that our acceptance isn't necessarily acceptance of the other recommendations. So that is something I've sent to you in an email, and trustees here, I didn't put that in the packet. I apologize for that. So that's one thing that needs to occur at some point. And it would be after any board discussion, if there's any items that they think they need to discuss. I will bring up the other 2 at the board meeting, but that's probably the most important part of this process, is that you need to have that done no later than December. So that's part 1. And again, I think I'll leave it with the rate commission did vote that we are in full compliance with the rate proposal and the 5 factors that are in the charter. Any questions about that part of the process? Okay. The more extensive part is part 2. Traditionally, and this starts at the bottom of the page from the recommendation from the rate commission, there is also a letter in the past that's been generated by MSD that responds to the rate commission about what our thoughts are regarding their recommendations. So I've sent some information out as to what the staff's thinking were on some of these, except really for one of them, we think there's a way to address all of their recommendations. But it is up to the Board of Trustees. So I'm going to go down each one of those, let you know what the staff's opinion is, and a lot of this will be repeated from the previous documents I had sent you. The goal here, what I would like to do is with any additional feedback, some board members have already contacted me, any additional feedback I get, the idea would be for MSD to draft a proposed response letter for review by the trustees to see if that's a sufficient response to these. So what I want to do is I'm going to go down each one of these. This is a good time if any of the trustees want to discuss each one of these items, I'll go down what the issue is and what staff's recommendation is and see if there's any discussion or anything contrary to what staff's thinking is that needs to be forwarded to the Rate Commission. So the first item, and I'm at the bottom of the page, the letter that transmittal from the Rate Commission. The Rate Commission is concerned with the potential rate impact on ratepayers already facing multiple utility rate increases and believes that the district could consider expansion of existing assistance programs. During the rate proposal, unfortunately, we were fifth in line of all the utilities this year have been raising their rates. So a lot of the discussions, rightly so, that came from the public had to do with MSD's rate increase, but the fact that there's rate increases, pretty hefty ones in some cases, across the board with all utilities. So while we've had some minor discussions, I've been talking with Marion G., and what we would propose is that prior to July 1, prior to the start of the next fiscal year, Marion G. present an expansion of the customer assistance program for consideration by the Board of Trustees. The program right now is if individual ratepayers either make less than the household is less than 2 times the poverty rate, or if their income, if they're over 60, if their income is less than 2.5 times the poverty rate, they're qualified for a 50% credit. Kind of the ideas that Marion and Marion's trying to put together is, should that be tiered? Should there be a 75% level? Should there be a 25% level? Should we go up a little higher? Marion's looking at that right now. And what we would propose is, in the response to the Rate Commission, is let them know that the board is going to be considering a change and that will be accomplished by the summer of 2024. That is staff's recommended response to the Rate Commission with regard to the customer assistance program. So, like I said, I've talked with a couple trustees. I'm curious if there's any comments from any of the trustees regarding putting that item in the letter to the Rate Commission, that kind of commitment. Okay.
Brian?
Yes.
Right, I've no objection, obviously, but I'm just curious, can we estimate the impact, the fiscal impact of an expansion of this credit on MSD?
Yes.
Or what the potential impact is?
Yeah, that's going to be an important part of what Marion's figuring out here right now is exactly what that number is. And that will be part of the information for any proposed program that the staff will present to the Board of Trustees for consideration.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Second one. Further, the Rate Commission recommends that the district take a leading role in the establishment of a task force on utility ratepayer financial impact issues, including other entities and impacted parties within the district service areas to consider issues related to utility ratepayer financial impact. So when this came up at the Rate Commission, I did have a discussion with a few of them trying to get an idea of what this would look like. Obviously, the utilities we're talking about for the most part are for-profit utilities. MSD is sitting back here as a not-for-profit entity, City Water, a not-for-profit entity, exactly what this would look like. I will let you know my discussion with them is that staff would recommend to the trustees that MSD push or try to get a group together that's appropriate in scope and size to have a discussion about the utility costs and the affordability of those utility costs throughout the area. I really don't know what that looks like right now. I think that takes a discussion with the trustees. Staff doesn't have any recommendation of what that would look like, other than it probably ought to be a regional authority or a consortium of regional authorities that want to have that discussion. Staff's recommendation as a response to the Rate Commission is that MSD will start, we don't want to start prior to the election. I think we've got enough on our plate, but that starting the summer of 2024, we would start talking to those entities and press to try and have a discussion of that kind throughout the regional area. That would be MSD's recommendation to give the Board of Trustees a chance to think about what would be an appropriate action for MSD. So that's how we would like to respond by letter. That's what staff's recommendation would be with regard to that recommendation. Okay. Now, the next item, and if anybody wants to double back on one as they think about it, please do so. This is going to be an extended process. So the next such issues, and this has to do with affordability, may include expansion of metering at a reduced cost to assist individuals in older homes, particularly in the city, where building attributes determine how much they are billed. So staff has in the past, and past boards have had discussions about how to do this. I think staff's opinion is there is an issue that we need to make sure that our funds are properly spent, because we are talking about assets on another utilities metering system. We are required to use whatever data the water company provides. That has to be the basis of our billing. That came from the lawsuit back in the 90s. But one thing that Marion and I are looking at, we have a couple of programs. For instance, if somebody has been receiving service from MSD and for some reason they haven't been billed, something got missed, something got put in, and they've been receiving service, we have provisions that let us go back 18 months to recover for that service. Even if they've been receiving it for 10 years, we only go back 18 months. The idea that Marion and I have bounced around is if somebody gets a meter and would like for us to compare their bill, their monthly charge, metered versus what they were paying just considering building attributes, we would be willing, we think right now the initial thoughts of a program that Marion's trying to pull together is we would offer them a credit for 18 months, the past 18 months, the difference between the charge for metered and the charge for building attributes. Based on the testimony that came from the public, the numbers we were kind of hearing is a typical customer is paying $60 per month, and large residential homes that had relatively few people were paying in the neighborhood of $120 a month. So if you think of the impact, if it's 60, just roughly here, if it's $60 per month for 18 months, that's a $1,000 credit that we would then assign once they've installed the meter and we have some readings. We figured staff's belief right now in thinking of that kind of system, we're just justifying what the appropriate billing rate is. We're not using our dollars to invest in water infrastructure. So that's another one where staff thinks that figuring out as a start what that program would look like and what the exact parameters would be, I've just given you an idea, that we could commit to having that presented to the trustees and something implemented by the summer of 2024 also. Any comments?
Brian, this is Amy. So did I understand you correctly that the homeowner would be required to purchase their own meter?
Yeah, the way the process is set up, property owner would need to install their own meter. They need to buy the meter box from the city. And on occasions, that installation of meters sometimes causes some additional plumbing work to be done based on a review from the plumbing inspector. We've heard of numbers somewhere between $2,000 to $4,000. The idea would be they would make the installation, we would do the meter reading. So not only would we go back 18 months, but then in the future for those folks, not only would their wastewater bill go down because it's now metered reading, their water bill would go down. Because remember, they're facing the same situation with the water bills that they're paying through the city of St. Louis. So there would then be some future savings as well. The idea would be is that we could kind of advance some of those savings by going back 18 months and giving them a credit on their bill.
Yeah, I mean, I just, when we've heard from people in the past on this issue, I think that the stumbling block has been that the cost of installing the meter has been prohibitive for people. So, I mean, it just seems like we could put this whole program together and then nobody would be able to avail themselves of it because the meter itself is too expensive.
So that is possible. Similar to what the Board of Trustees here have heard, is we were hearing numbers of $2,000 to $4,000 for installation from the public during the public testimony during the rate commission process. So you're right. It is possible we could put that provision in place. Quite honestly, it might not be a bad idea. While it kind of addresses that issue, it might not just be a fair thing for us to put in place, just like we do with past billings and put that in. I agree, we could put it in place and it's possible nobody would take advantage. But that is staff's thought process in trying to find a way to help address this in a way that's fair to MSD, all of MSD's wastewater customers. So what we're doing is actually billing for the actual cost that went to that customer now that we have water billing data. So that's true. It's going to depend on the individuals as to whether or not they want to move forward. Comments from anybody else?
I just don't think it sounds like it might not be a viable solution unless the cost of the installation of the meter is somehow subsidized.
That's possible. Trustee Fair, I'm just going off this. Contrary, staff's is not based in total opinion, but are you recommending that the board discuss some other method? That is what we came up for, trying to make this, make it more attractive.
Yeah, I mean, I just wouldn't be in favor of putting together a program that practically isn't going to work for anybody.
And so I guess I'm looking for ideas as to what that is.
Well, could we subsidize the cost of the installation of the meter in some way?
And I think staff would be asking the board to, I think there's some things to ask. The preferred method of billing by ordinance from the city is for no meters. I think the other question, we haven't looked into this really deep, but just considering, is that an appropriate use of wastewater revenues to fund the installation of water meters? And that's something, if the board really wants to look into just a grant program or a reimbursement program, staff can look into that.
Yeah, I mean, Brian, I'm not saying I think it's an appropriate use of wastewater revenue. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me to put together a program that, practically is still, never going to be utilized because of the barriers to utilizing the program.
Trustee Fair, okay, so I'll give you something else we got. One of the reasons we think this is possibly useful. So even without our program, it seems apparent to us that an individual homeowner would get in 3 years, we get a payback in installing a meter versus that. 3 years, they would pay for the meter installation, and then they would have that savings in perpetuity. So there is already a payback for them to install that. This isn't just for our use. Our thought was to try and kickstart that a little bit and make the return period somewhat less. I understand your thoughts. I'm not sure what a reimbursement level would be appropriate. And we would want to do some coordination with the city of St. Louis. Again, I'm a little hesitant because we are talking about city of St. Louis water infrastructure, that we are encouraging something that I just want to talk with them and make sure there's not an issue they see with us providing thinking about a program like that. So we can start the process of just taking a look legally, which we haven't done yet. And we do happen to have a meeting with the city coming up later this week. I can broach that topic with the mayor's office and just get their initial thought about if MSD was to provide a program like this, what are their thoughts about how we might affect them operationally. So I can go ahead and do that.
Brian, do you have any idea how big the addressable market is in the city for this program?
So it is definitely not homes who have a relatively large number of people living in a small home, just like they are benefiting from this program. Obviously, since the size of the home is what impacts it. There's folks who sit right in the middle, and then obviously the folks MSD is hearing from are folks in relatively large homes with relatively small number of occupants. So that being the case, my answer is I don't know how many of the 300,000 wastewater customers we have in the population in the city. I'm not sure how many we're talking about here. I don't have any way of knowing. We don't track the actual occupancy of homes, residential buildings in the city of St. Louis.
Brian, how are the residents of St. Louis City billed for their water?
So the same way we're
Is it
doing.
metered?
No, it is not. I think that's the issue. The city of St. Louis' current ordinance provides that people can be provided what I think the ordinance indicates is a good option is we will simply take a look at the attributes of the building you're in, the number of bathrooms, the number of rooms, bedrooms. I'm not hitting all those, but it's those attributes in the facility. And the water company distributes the cost of water based on the size of the residential home and the number of rooms. We do the same thing. Slight variation. I don't know that the water company actually tries to figure out what is a generated number for a particular attribute. MSD, based on the findings we had from the Supreme Court in the 90s, we actually go through and we've distributed anticipated water generation from each attribute based on studies that are out there. So we are actually billing them, we are charging them an attribute based on an estimated amount of flow from that attribute. I don't think the city goes to that depth. I think they simply, in some fashion, agree on a charge per attribute. I don't know if they actually have a water usage assigned to that.
Brian, can I just add something really fast, just because the question came up, and I agree we have no way of knowing what the real market is, but we have 57,000 unmetered single-family residences, so it'd be some subset of that, but we would have no way of knowing.
So 57,000 unmetered residents, and very few residents are metered. I just know anecdotally from the city, a lot of residential new construction, if it goes in place, is also still unmetered. The city does not have a requirement that they be metered. So I think that's an item we'll leave for you guys to ponder. We've got some time here on this. So as a matter of fact, in any kind of proposed draft letter, I might just lay out some of the part of the discussion as we move forward and kind of get this response developed. Anything on that or any of the previous items? There is the last item prior to stormwater. Or pursuing the access of funds from the city of St. Louis and county from the NFL settlement as set forth in the resolution approved by the Rate Commission attached to the Rate Commission report. So this is the Rams money that the county and city are trying to decide how to spend. Staff expressed an opinion to the rate commissioners that we understand what you're asking for. Staff, let's say my opinion is we are somewhat cognizant of the financial situation and needs in the county and the city, and find that probably not to be a realistic path to try and gain funds by having the RAMS funds go towards funding capital programs for MSD based on what we understand the needs are of the city and the county. We have, the subject did come up with the county executive's office, and I think the general attitude was, well, good luck, you can get in line. We were just letting them know that this was publicly put out because of a recommendation from the rate commission. We are going to let the city know that this is in a public document as well. So what we know of what's going on, as well as some of the stuff I think I've been hearing, staff thinks we understand that that may not be necessarily an appropriate ask of the city and the county to access RAMS funding. However, we'll do, if the board has a different opinion, staff will obviously move forward with that. So kind of looking for some input from the trustees as to an idea of what you think we ought to do with that recommendation.
I mean, do you think there's any harm in asking? You know, you think that's going to burn bridges if we make the ask?
So there you go. I don't know. Our analysis is the chances of getting something are probably close to zero. Does the ask cause a problem? Or by some chance, if we get awarded some funding as opposed to another program, is there something we burn there? And I think the thing is, I don't know. I just know it's out there. I will give you my opinion. I'm not sure it's worth the ask based on what I understand the need is in the county and the city, but the board may have a different opinion. So I don't know what it could be, but I could picture in my mind some things happening that could be an issue. I just don't know what they are.
If it means anything, Brian, I'm with you on this. That money is, the line's really, really long, and I can't imagine that they are going to be offering it to, making it available to us.
So I
agree with that.
Okay. I'm going to put something, what I think where we're at is I'll put something in the letter for review by the trustees and see if I get any disagreement what's in there then. So I think I got the feedback I need on that. Thank you. The last one in this letter is the Stormwater Municipal Grant Program. There's a lot of items here, and I'm just going to summate what's there because I think we've got a solution or a resolution that might work. MSD's Stormwater Grant Program proposal is based on, and part of its environmental justice consideration in our proposal, is that any of the stormwater grants that go to municipalities be based on population and make those dollars by population available to the local elected officials, very similar to what we do in the OMCI districts that you just heard Rich go through, and let them decide if they have any kind of stormwater program that they want to fund. We know there are going to be some folks who don't have a long-term plan, some who really don't have a stormwater issue. Our current proposal is to take any unused funds and put them in the district-wide pot, whether it be the whole district or the environmental justice pot for projects in environmental justice areas, and simply expand on those programs. The proposal by the Rate Commission is that all of these be applied for funds and somehow track a leveling later on. We want to make sure the leveling and opportunities on the front end, the Rate Commission's recommendation puts that on the back end. They want to be able to have an application process They want to be able, if they provide local grants themselves, to have more access to grant dollars, as opposed to MSD's task that as long as the community gives us a stormwater project that they think is highest priority, the way we run the stormwater program now in OMCI, require them to have some kind of cost benefit analysis. Make sure they have long-term planning. That's not necessarily what the stormwater needs in some communities that we found are appropriate. Staff is of the mind that if a community comes to us with what they think is a stormwater issue that they think is a priority they want to address, as long as they're well thought out, as we've done in the OMCIs, we've agreed to provide the funding as long as the city moves forward. So there's a little bit of a disconnect. I really view it as being what's on the front end. So as a compromise, what staff would like to recommend to the Rate Commission is that we maintain the per population upfront grant opportunities to all municipalities as we have spelled out. If there are funds that are unused, not wanted, we would then go to what is proposed by the Rate Commission. Any dollars that are not used as part of the program, don't have a plan to be used, apparently aren't going to be used, we don't have any to address their issue, we could take those funds, instead of putting them in our regional program, we could take those funds and put them in a pot for competitive selection and competitive proposals. We could consider every item they have in here as far as, do you have a plan in place? Are you going to provide local funding yourself? Do you have a prioritization process plan developed in your municipality? Kind of everything you see listed here on the letter. We could use that as a guideline for developing a list of criteria and make any unused municipal funds go to that, as opposed to MSD's proposal of put it in the more regional cost benefit type pot that we use throughout the district. So that's what staff sees as a compromise. I haven't had a chance to talk with staff. I myself really like going, I don't necessarily think that's the best option. I think going to our district-wide cost benefit process, I think is best. But this other one does have merits. And it does, the biggest merit being it's kind of a mix of the two programs. The real goal is to make sure every community by population has initial access to the dollars. And that's accomplished. And then anything that's left over, we could use a program wrapped around the ideas that are being presented by the Rate Commission. That's what MSD staff's recommendation would be. Any thoughts or comments about any of those? I know I've thrown out basically two ideas here, but comments or thoughts on any of that? Okay. I will put something together. Then finally, the last item I wish to discuss is it's not in this letter, it is the two issues that were brought up at the last board meeting for those of you who are here with regard to the rate proposal. There were two topics. I'm going to go over both of those because we are going to need, board thoughts about how to address these. So both of the issues brought up are issues that are in the minority reports coming from the Rate Commission. And they're coming to the board to express that issue as well. There are two of them. And if you happen to be looking at the September 21st or 28th email, I'm going to do the last item first because it's easier. MSD, when we bill for wastewater usage, entities that sewer extra strength waste. It's not dangerous, it's not chemical, it's not that type of thing. It is extra strength, for lack of a better term, municipal waste. More of stuff that is normally put down, whether it's solids or biological oxygen demand, that comes from our residents. If an industry sewers more than that based on our testing, they get a surcharge to pay for the extra cost of treatment. That number goes up, went up this year, it went up 4 years ago. MSD's proposal was to immediately charge that extra surcharge when we start billing at the start of fiscal year 2025, this summer 2024. Proposal by some folks who were speaking at the Rate Commission is to phase that in over 2 years. So that, maybe the first year it's half and the second year full charge, to do some kind of phasing in. There was a long discussion with the Rate Commission. This was after MSD was no longer involved. We were sitting listening to the discussion. And they did discuss, well, what is the impact? Because if you phase it in, those costs then need to be pushed to all the other customers during the phasing in period. It was a relatively small amount that would be an extra cost for the rest of the rate commissioners, rest of the residents. The rate commissioners did hear some information on what the impact on some of the industries or lack of impact would be for some industries if it was phased in. They had a long discussion on it. I think the only thing I want to convey, again, I still back MSD's proposal that rate be charged right at the beginning and not phased in. The Rate Commission voted 13-2 and agreed with MSD's proposal. There were 2 entities that still felt it ought to be phased in. That's what you heard at the last board meeting. So this is an example of, we spoke earlier about a resolution accepting the Rate Commission's findings. If the board feels that they want to act in that direction, process-wise, the board would have to write a letter to the Rate Commission explaining why you want to put the phasing in, the recommendation by these other 2 entities, and explain why the Rate Commission didn't get it right. The board has the right to do that, but it does require a written, detailed explanation from the board to the Rate Commission as to why you would go contrary to their recommendation. That is the process that's in the charter. So I think what I'm asking here is eventually what we got to get to, is there any thought of one of the board wanting to pursue that or discuss that further? I'm sure it's quite possible that those entities will come and speak again at the board meeting a week from Thursday and make their case again. They know that we're having this discussion today. So is there any upfront thoughts on that? It is just out there, and it is one of the items that will have to be considered by the board prior to us passing a resolution as to in what way we accept or in some ways don't accept the recommendations from the Rate Commission. So, and an answer is not needed now. I think the idea is for us to have the resolution, hopefully the letter done by November. I just wanted to lay that out for the trustees to think about and provide any comments they thought they'd have. The second item is on that email is item number 1. And this has to do, and Tim Snoke is here. If you want to go deeper than I'm going to explain, I'm going to hand this off to Tim.
And I'm happy to go deep into this.
So MSD's rate proposal provides for a 1.8 times debt service coverage. So whatever our debt service is in a given year, we provide a cash available 1.8 times that debt as insurance, for lack of a better term. That coverage ratio is a significant part of the bond rating that MSD receives from bond rating institutions. Staff's proposal is to maintain the 1.8 coverage. What that does is while there is cash that's required to cover the 1.8, it also, we believe, assures us to maintain our bond rating and to maintain the interest we have to pay on our debt. Proposal that came from others was that we reduced the bond coverage to 1.6 times the amount of annual debt service. Two things happen there. On the positive side, in the view of those who are making this proposal, by a couple dollars, the monthly charge to our residents is going to be, for the next 5 to 8 years, is going to be less than what MSD is proposing. All things being equal, after that time, their proposal will result in a cost to our ratepayers of something more than what MSD is proposing for the next 35 years, about 35 years after that. So, Tim, again, if you believes that this is the appropriate to fund, the rate consultant for the rate commission also thought it was appropriate. One of the items that was brought up at the meeting at the discussion we had here by the Consumers Council was that MSD has somehow changed their financing strategy. And I won't get into the details. This comes from their belief that somehow we have a policy or a practice of maintaining a certain amount of funding the system, a certain amount with cash and a certain amount with bonding. And we don't. That is just an outcome of how much bond coverage you have. So they may be confusing that piece. Also, the rate report that came from the Rate Commission only had the results of the first 4 years of putting this into place. The analysis that Tim Snow gave them went well beyond and was what I described, about 6 years of less and another 35 years of more. So I think that may have been the only information the Consumer Council had available. So staff's recommendation here is, we agree. The Rate Commission, after considering all that, voted 11-4 to maintain MSD's cash financing plan. And obviously MSD is still in agreement with that. So that's the background having to do with that second issue that was presented by some individuals that, again, I suspect you may hear again a week from Thursday. Questions on, I'm not sure how clearly I explained that with trying to be short and simple. Any questions, comments, anything somebody wants to hear from Tim Snoke about this?
I mean, I just have a question. It seems to me it wouldn't even be possible to lower our debt service coverage ratio, would it? I mean, isn't that a debt covenant that we would be in breach of if we lowered it?
So there are debt service coverage limits in our bond agreements, but they are much lower than the level we target. So we stay above those minimums just to make sure that we do not default on any debt. But we are above, I can tell you we are below, our targets are below the medians for our credit range, but they are above where, the intervener, for example, would always like them to be. So we could lower coverage, at least temporarily, but our expectation is that would lead to higher rates for the long term. So the same people that they say they're trying to protect now would be in worse shape in the not too distant future, would be our expectation.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense to me.
And which are the which entities or organizations are the ones that are pushing this? I understand this is a minority report, but was there an intervener or other entities?
It is an intervener, so MIEC, Missouri Industrial Energy Commission, so they typically come in and say you should issue more debt. That's a common refrain from them. And then what you've heard from them and from the council, I think, is that MSD should go, stick with its long-term policy or board policy. There's no policy that specifically sets what our coverage is. Our coverage limits are the amount of cash that we collect to fund the capital program has changed over time. 20 years ago, we had no debt. And so the first couple of years of our program, we 100% debt funded. In 2008, the rate commission recommended a 55-45 debt split. After that, we funded roughly 80% with debt. Then it was 70, now it's 60, and a lot of that. So that coverage that we're talking about, the amount that we are trying to collect above and beyond debt service coverage, it's not like it just sits in our accounts. It goes to cash fund the capital program. So it is being used to fund the program. It's not just cash that's sitting around or sitting idle. We're not collecting cash just to collect cash. What we're trying to do is balance the needs of meeting our regulatory obligations and affordability. And it is a balance. There's trade-offs either way. We could issue more debt today and it would keep rates a little bit lower today. But again, the expectation is, you're locking in then fixed costs in the future. The expectation is that rates would have to be higher in the future. In 20 years ago, when we had no debt, that time where you'd have to switch to higher rates was way off. Well, now it's getting closer. Now we can see it on the horizon. And so that's what we're trying to avoid, to give us the most flexibility to keep rates lower, even though there's still a lot of funding of the consent decree left to go. Does that make sense? I'll take that as a yes.
Okay, so here's how staff is going to proceed. I think there's two items that I will seek some input from. So I will send out the resolution as it looks now, accepting the rate report, assuming that we will agree with everything that came from the rate commission. So I'll send that document out again. We will get together a draft letter responding to all the remaining items that are on the rate commission's transmission letter. Based on some of the stuff I've heard, one's going to be a little fuzzy because I didn't really hear close to a consensus as to what we should do, but I'll lay that out for consideration by the board, and I'll talk to the individual trustees about what they think about that. With regard to the two items that we just discussed, the phasing in of the surcharge, as well as the change in the debt service coverage, again, I think everything I kind of said is in your September 15th email, just laying out the consequences of that. It's the second in a string of emails I sent. So it's described there, and then Tim's added some additional information. That kind of thing needs to be decided before we come to November's meeting with regard to what to do with the resolution. If to comply with either one of those requests is also going to if we decide to go against the vote of the rate commission, will require us to put a explanation letter together for the rate commission as to why we're doing something different than what the rate commission recommended. So I will get those things together. So I've accomplished what I wanted to do today. I wanted to get some feel and hopefully generate some draft documents that are 80 to 90% correct, and that hopefully will accomplish some additional discussion and between the board, so we can figure out where it is we need to go with this then. Is there anything on any of that I've described or discussed? I would offer, by the time I get this ready, please give me a call individually if you wish about any additional thoughts. That would be most helpful. And we'll get something together, and I suspect I'll get it out and just probably poll the board and find out if there's any changes or what changes they think from those draft documents they'd like to see, and that'll kind of set us up for a discussion during the committee meetings prior to the November board meeting. Trustee Wilson, if there's nothing else, that's all I had.
Thank you, Mr. President. Does anyone have anything for the good of the committee? If not, I'll entertain a motion for the next tentative meeting is the 31st of October. And if no one has anything, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second? Can I get a second?
Second.
There we go.
Thank you.
Zoomed.
Pleasure of my life, folks. Have a good week, Mom.
Thank you, everyone.